So how much are you spending on texting and cold calling, and what would you say the ROAS is?
Just from texting alone, we've gotten 24 deals. We made 519,000.
Damn.
Yeah, just off texting.
This year?
Yes.
Wow.
That's year to date.
So you made $500,000 this year from texting.
Yes.
And you only spent how much?
$12,000. It's just
$12K to
repurposing.
make $500K is
Yeah.
crazy. So how much do you think you spend a month in marketing?
$30,000 to $35,000 a month now.
So $35K, but then you're making $300K a month in revenue. That's really, really, really good. Welcome to the Wealthy Investor Podcast. My name is Brian Davila, your host. This is the #1 podcast with tactical education on how to scale your flipping, wholesaling, and rental business. And today on the podcast, we have Dakota Bailey.
What up?
How's it going?
Good.
Good. For people who don't know who you are, can you give us like some quick highlights of what have you've done in real estate?
In real estate specifically, or can I talk about car sales too?
No. No one cares about cars.
Okay, nobody cares about car sales. So in real estate, been doing real estate now since 2018. Started off mostly doing rentals. We got up to about 30 rentals when we joined Future Flipper at the time, which is now Wealthy Investor. And then we started switching into flipping and wholesaling a lot more. Built up a team. Now we probably have like 15, 16 people on the team. We're doing 20, 25 transactions a month, like contracts, I would say. And now we're up to like 80 rentals. So yeah, it's basically a real quick overview about what we've done. And
how much revenue have you guys made in the last 6 months?
That's a great question.
There we go.
We just switched over tax accountants, so it's kind of a difficult question to answer. So, I mean, I would guess, I don't know, probably 700,000, 800.
Okay, so you guys are doing about $2 million a year in revenue?
Somewhere around 1.2 to 1.5 is usually net. I'm talking net, not gross.
Okay,
yeah. So I'm talking actual net.
Yeah, so net, you make about 1.2 a year.
Yep.
What's the revenue?
The gross
revenue, yeah.
I have no idea, dude. Probably 3-4 million.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's like about like a 30% margin, you think?
Somewhere between 25 and 30%.
Okay.
Because it's all the way that our books are, dude. It's all different than how other people do it. So we have all of our books in one QuickBooks. Yeah. Even though it's in different LLCs, they're just subcategories. And so then all of the rentals, all of the flips, all of it's all in the same one. So it kind of gets a little bit messy sometimes.
But still, so you guys are netting $100K a month about.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That might be the thumbnail of this video.
Yeah.
But so I guess let's break down your organization now, and then we'll work our way backwards. Okay. So what does your organization look like right now?
So we have 3 acquisitions guys. So they're just the ones who are actually finding the deals. They get paid 100% commission. We used to have lead qualifiers. We got rid of them, and then we hired VA, who's just doing the cold texting, getting more leads and stuff. So the acquisitions guys are just calling, getting leads, or I'm sorry, not getting leads, but actually like following up with the leads and closing deals. Then we have 1 dispositions guy, so he's the one obviously selling the deals on wholesale. We probably do 70% wholesale, 30% flips, and then sometimes we pick off a rental here and there. Mm-hmm. We have our COO. She's kind of like the person who holds everybody accountable to their KPIs and like making sure they're plugging in their stuff, getting it done.
Okay, I didn't know you had a lady COO. That's cool.
Yeah, she's awesome. She's a beast. She's also our in-house real estate agent too, so she's the one who lists all of our properties and stuff, and it kind of works out well. So that's actually how I met her, was she was listing all of our properties. We negotiated like, hey, we'll have you list all of ours, and then we'll give you 1%, and we're all for the other half, 2.5%. So we list all of our properties for 3.5%. We gave her so much volume that, man, she was just crushing it. And I was like, I like working with you. Why don't you come in-house? And so now she's helping us in multiple different capacities. So yeah, she's a beast. She's really hard worker. It's kind of funny because she's older than all of us too. She's like I don't know, in her 50s. I'm not gonna say age because you know how women are about that. Yeah. She's in her 50s. And so she almost
still said her age.
Well, no, I said she's in her 50s. I didn't say her age. Yeah. So anyway, she's in her 50s, and then she's kind of like our mom in a way. She's also the person who like plans all the events, and so we have a one event a month where we either go karting. One time we went paintballing. Like, we like to have fun with the team and stuff. So she's the person who plans all that stuff out too. She also runs the Fort Wayne Real Estate Investors Association, which is something else that we do to kind of give back to the community to teach them. So she's the one who runs that as well. And then honestly, we just opened up this other building that we just bought that is an old strip club, and then we're actually going to turn it into a wedding venue, and she's going to help run that whole thing. So anyway, she's a beast.
Okay. So you got COO.
Yeah. Yep. Then we got a project manager. He's the person who's in charge of the construction and all of the general contractors and stuff like that. We probably have like 6 or 7 crews that he manages.
Damn. That's a lot of crews.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot to manage.
How many flips do you guys usually hold at a time?
Usually it's somewhere around like 10 to 15. Right now we're around 20 to 25. And then that strip club, like the old strip club is like, dude, that's a big project. I mean, we're going to spend around $400,000 or $500,000 on that renovation. So that one's been a horrible mess. And then we also bought an old abortion clinic.
Oh my God. What is going on with strip clubs?
So here's the coolest part, dude. So I don't know if I told you this, but we put in the deed restrictions that it can never be an abortion clinic. It can never be a strip club again. So I feel like God is using us in a sense of like buying buildings and then making sure that it's like used for like good things. And so we believe in turning something that was used for bad and turning into something good. So
that's
I
deep.
feel like God is using us in a good way, honestly. So it's most people would shy away from those buildings, and I'm like, I feel like God chose me in some sense because I'm the kind of person that's like, I don't care. Like, I don't care what it used to be. I look at what it can be. And I think that's the way God looks at all of us. So I also don't believe a building is necessarily a bad thing. It's what the people decide to do inside the building.
Yeah.
So anyway, project manager is handling those ones, which are some big projects. And so he's got 20 something and those office buildings and the old strip club. It's like massive, massive ones. So when he gets those off his plate, he'll be able to handle that capacity of right around 20 a lot easier. So then we have Christian, who's with us. He used to be like more of an assistant, but now he's kind of like the person he's getting video testimonials. He's doing all the posting. He got us on the news. Like he's kind of like
a media guy.
Yeah, like the media guy who does that. But then we have Cody, who's actually our videographer, who does our personal social media. Christian's more for the company media and stuff. So
interesting.
Then we have Jonathan. He's kind of like he knows how to do basically almost everything. So whenever anybody goes out of town, like right now, Kane, our dispositions guy's out of town. Jonathan just stepped in. He's doing dispo. He anytime we need IT work, he can do that. He knows how to do transaction coordinating. So he's kind of like a floater in a sense. Tony, we've been using him more as like a chief growth officer, just like going in and like trying to make people's job easier, smoother, faster, better, and really plan out like where they're going. And then we have two transaction coordinators right now. One, we're moving over to more of a controller position. So they're going to be like doing more like the bookkeeping and like making sure everything's organized. And then we're going to help to like set the budgets and stuff like that. And then I'm trying to think if there's anybody else I missed. That's basically most of the organization though. And then me as CEO, I'm just like there to help with culture, keep everybody motivated, deal with lawsuits, jump in. Like I'm also acting as sales manager, so I underwrite a lot of the deals, and then I'm helping the guys close deals. I'm helping with dispo, stuff like that. Basically, anytime any big issues come up, that's me. And then also sometimes I just like to go in there and do other people's jobs.
How much do you pay your acquisition people now?
So their acquisitions guys are 100% commission, and they're based on net profit. So they get paid once the property actually is either flipped or whenever we actually receive the money. If it's a rental, then we pay them out of the refinance, and that's based on the appraisal amount is basically like what we would have flipped it for.
Yeah.
So they get paid 10% of net profit, and then they go up 1% every deal after 5. So it's deal number 6, they're going to get 11%. Deal number 7, they're going to get 12% of net. And so
that's a month, or that's just yearly?
Monthly.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So how many deals do your like salespeople lock up usually a month then?
Our top guy, I mean, Andrew was with us for a while. He was usually doing somewhere between 50 and 20 by himself. He was doing a lot. JJ is usually closer to somewhere between 10 and 15.
Got it.
A month. And so, yeah, they're
10 or 15 deals a month.
Yeah.
Damn, that's a lot.
Yeah. But we spent a lot in marketing too. So
okay.
But yeah, so it's been good. And yeah, with the different guys and with 3 different guys, it's going well. And yeah.
Okay, so that's your acquisitions. What do you pay your project manager?
Project manager, he gets paid $500 or $1,000, depending on if it's a whole tail. So if it's a whole tail, all he's got to do, go throw a lockbox on it, swap the locks, send cleaners over there, get photos, bam, he'll make $500. Even if if he touches it, if he goes over there and swaps the locks or puts a lockbox on it, he gets $500 no matter what.
Okay.
Then on the flip, he gets $1,000 for managing all of the flips. Plus, he gets 1% of net profit.
Got it.
So that way, he's kind of incentivized to still save
1% of net profit on the flip.
Correct.
Got it.
Oh, on
Okay.
both.
On both.
Either one.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Got it. Okay, that's interesting. So acquisitions, project manager. What do you pay your dispo person?
So dispositions, right now we're doing 5%. If anybody brings us a deal outside, so if we JV with anybody, we're going to do 10% on that deal. I'm still working out the whole structure with him because I want to pay more, but in the same time, he does have a lot of opportunity because he's got 3 guys that are feeding him deals, and he gets first opportunity on all of them. Because what I did is I wanted to set up a system and a process, because what was also becoming a bottleneck was when you're running that many deals, like 20, 25 deals, if I'm looking at every deal and what should we do and stuff, it's a lot of decisions for me. So instead of me being oh, this one's going to be a wholesale, this one's going to be this one's going to be that, it's just we're going to wholesale every single one. If it doesn't work as a wholesale, you get until we close that deal. Once we close it, it's turning into a wholesale automatically. So you miss your opportunity. So you need to try to wholesale it in that time. Once we close on it, now it's going to be a wholesale. So Connor's going to go over there. Our project manager is going to go over there, put a lockbox on it. We're going to get it listed. Now, if that doesn't work, then we take it down. We're going to flip it. If that doesn't work, we keep it as a rental. And so now it's just a system and a process every single time. So people don't have to know, oh, what are we doing? It's the same way every single time.
That's good.
Unless we only have a couple exceptions if the contractors need work and we want to keep them working on stuff. So that's the only time that we really make an exception, and that's pretty rare, I would say. So anyway, we pay him 5% though right now, and I feel like it's decent, but I really want our acquisitions guys and our disposition guys to always be able to, make well over 6 figures. That's pretty important.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most creative ways that I've heard how to structure your deals. Mm-hmm. So I think that's really good.
Yeah.
So that was dispositions. We talked about acquisitions, project management. I guess what do you pay your COO?
So our COO, we are still working on her pay and exactly how we're doing it. Right now, we put her on a salary. So she gets salary plus percentage of net profit. So I think she's at 5% of net profit. So whatever the business does, and she gets a 5% of that plus her salary. And then again, she's also the real estate agent who's listing all of the properties, and so she gets all of our listings and stuff too. So she makes a lot of money from that. And then also, of course, when you're listing that many, she became the number one EXP agent in our entire area because of all of the deals that we did.
Yeah.
And so that helped her business a lot of other ways too. And so she's doing good.
She's doing good. Okay. Yeah. Did we miss any important roles or?
I mean, I can talk about our social media and stuff too, because that was one that was very difficult for me to figure out. So I think it's easier to figure out how you're going to pay somebody based on a percentage of revenue, because that's really easy. When you're trying to find out how to pay our social media guy and stuff, that's very difficult. So we started paying him per post. Because every post past a certain amount, we wanted to pay him on. Same thing with the guy who's representing our company, like a PR person. We pay him based on how many testimonials it gets. So if he does a video testimonial, we're going to pay him $50 per video testimonial gets plus his hourly. That way he's incentivized to go get as many of those, because they make a big difference on who decides to do business with us. The more we have of those, the more we make money. And so I always want to incentivize based on performance, because whenever you pay somebody a bonus based on what you want and that would actually help the business, then I think that's what I'm always looking to do. And so he got 15 last month.
Yeah.
So that was just a big bonus for him on top of his hourly, but it also really helps us to generate more money, which is always, that's the most difficult part, is to figure out how can you do it if they're not generating direct revenue. How do you still incentivize them that's actually going to affect the business? And that's what I'm always trying to do, is create bonuses that will help grow the business too.
Yeah. Okay. Now we talked about pay. We talked about what your acquisition team looks like. Let's talk about marketing. Mm-hmm. Can you break down all your marketing?
Mm-hmm. Now that I'm going to pull up a spreadsheet just like I did
Google
last time.
spreadsheets, baby.
Yes, sir.
While Dakota is looking at this Google spreadsheet, I'm going to take this time to tell all the listeners, subscribe to this channel. We're quickly growing as one of the top real estate investment podcasts, and it's because of you. So I just want to say I love you. Brianna loves you. Dakota loves you.
Yeah.
And if you want, come sit on my lap. I'm just joking.
All right, cut that out.
No, leave it in.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
All right, so
The first time listeners are like, what is he talking about? All right, sorry, go ahead. Onward.
I'm not allowed to talk about if I need to use the restroom, but you can say that. That's fine.
Okay.
Anyway, so we have direct mail. That's one we've been doing. Man, we've been doing direct mail since we started this. I was just thinking about that. Whenever we first came to this meetup back in 2020, like Ryan was like, "Hey, everybody, go in front of the group and share something that you think you do differently than everybody else." And so we talked about direct mail.
Yeah.
And we found a really cheap way to do it. So I'll share it with everybody.
Okay, share them.
Yeah, I'll share this special little hack.
Gem.
Yeah, it's a gem.
That's what
the
the wholesalers say. They say gem.
Yeah, this is a good gem. So gem like GYM or GEM?
I think it's like jam. Okay.
Okay, so direct mail. Basically what we did is we have this like hello blank, and it was just all written out in Sharpie. And then we say, we have a cash offer, or we're prepared to make a cash offer on blank. And, do you have any interest in moving this, or what are your plans for it? Something like that. We kind of copied the script off Ryan Dawsey. So anyway, we hand wrote all of this stuff.
Thank you, Dawsey.
Yeah, thank you, Dawsey. So we hand wrote all of this stuff, and then we put it on the copy machine, and we copy a bunch of them. That way it looks like you hand wrote all of this stuff. Then all you have to do is fill in the name and then the address. And so you're not handwriting the whole thing out a bunch. So if you got, you want to go like really cheap, I think it costs us like less than $1 per letter. Then that's the way we did it. It's a lot of work, and then you have your, Excel sheet of where you're sending it to versus that. But anyway, that's a little hack. Cold calling, we do that. We got.
Well, how much do you spend on mail?
So that's changed from time to time. Right now, we're probably spending somewhere around $2,000.
Also, it's not a lot.
Yeah, no, not a lot.
Why
No.
not?
We just decided like so we partnered up with Ryan on the leads there, and so we decided to slow down with ballpoint. So we were doing that. So Tony's mom actually writes those letters, and so we have her doing all those letters. She probably writes somewhere around 2,000 to 3,000 a month.
Okay.
But then we were also running it through Ryan's thing, Ryan Dawsey. Let me clarify that.
Yeah.
Ryan Dawsey's
Ryan
thing's
Pineda.
ballpoint. Yeah,
Got it.
ballpoint. And then when Ryan said, "Hey, I want to partner on this Leeds Kitchen thing," I was like, "Well, okay, well, where would we take it from?" So we decided to stop doing ballpoint and then went over to that one. And that's honestly like there's a lot of leads that are coming in through that. So
Okay.
Cold calling, that one's always been there. We basically use the same list that we're polling for direct mail. We just use that same list for texting and cold calling. And so those ones are just really good ROI. I mean, cold calling and texting are just ridiculous.
So how much are you spending on texting and cold calling, and what would you say the ROAS or return on ad spend is?
I mean, we're probably spending like not much. I mean, I'm talking like
2K?
maybe, $2K a month.
Yeah.
And like, and that's, the return is like, let me see the actual ROI. Oh, it's not in here. Cool. I would say it's probably like, it's our best. It's like 6 times, like 6 or 7 times. Like maybe, no, I'm sorry, 16 times. It's like, it's a massively insane. Like
So how much revenue is that? 'Cause I know
so
16
revenue
times
just
two.
from texting alone, we've gotten 24 deals. We made 519,000.
Damn.
Yeah, just off texting.
This year?
Yes.
Wow.
That's year to date, just texting.
No way.
Yes.
Wow.
Texting is insane.
That's going to be on the highlight of this video.
Dude, texting it's always been the best. So when we started having issues with texting, all of our guys were freaking out. And I'm like,
Are we going to have to work at Applebee's?
yeah, well, no, it's not like that. It's like, are we going to have to work twice as hard on another lead source? I'm like, yes, you will. And so that's the bad thing about whenever a marketing thing is so good, that like it's so easy that people get used to it. They forget that you have to grind sometimes.
How many leads does it take to well, actually, let's finish this spend, and then we're going to talk about how many leads each marketing channel takes to close a deal, so that way the listeners can close a deal fast.
That sounds like a great idea if I had that information.
We'll figure it out. But anyways, okay, so you made $500,000 this year from texting.
Yes.
And you only spent how much?
For some reason, the marketing spend's not in this spreadsheet right now. So, like I said, I mean, we're probably talking like, so this is what I mean by repurposing the list, though, because that list was already used for direct mail. It's already used for texting.
Okay.
So we're repurposing the same list. And so if you're talking all the data and stuff that we pulled, then yeah, it's going to be a way bigger
But just the
spend. But
texting
just
is-
for, just for the actual texting, which is using the same list as what we already had, you're talking an extra $2,000 a month. So like we're talking,
Nothing.
$12,000.
Okay.
Like it's
So
just
12K to make
repurposing.
500K is crazy.
It's just repurposing that list and you already spent the money on the list. You might as well use it for all your different sources to maximize cold calling, texting, direct mail. Sometimes you could even put it into where I think that you can use Facebook ads and Instagram ads to target the list that you're putting to. So it's just repurposing that list that's really the most expensive thing to like take, skip trace, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Using that list and maximizing it.
Yeah.
So anyway, then of course you got TV ads. That one I've always liked, but just more for credibility. It just like when people see you on TV, they think that you are way more credible for some reason. So same thing with wholesalers. They bring us deals because we're on TV. You get more notice. You're seen as like the authority in town.
Yeah.
So we've got a couple deals from that. Bandit signs, dude, that's a very underutilized thing. Everybody's like, oh, bandit signs don't work. Bandit signs are some of my favorite leads. If somebody's calling off a bandit sign, which are those little signs that you put in the ground to say we buy houses, man, those people are motivated.
Yeah.
So bandit signs, I love them. Of course, wholesalers, joint ventures. We have the Fort Wayne RIA, which is just, for sale by owner. Carrot leads. I mean, obviously, I think it's very important to have a website set up. We got 19 deals from that. We're not sure if that was exactly from TV ads, direct mail. You never know. That's something else on the direct mail that I want to say too is we also put at the bottom like your local home buyers, and then we put our website at the bottom too, so they can go check us out. I think that's important. We got referrals. We got like 5 of those. So that's pretty important. And then Google Voice, Google Pay-Per-Click, Driving for Dollars, and then of course the Pineda leads. We call them Pineda leads. They're technically, that Leads Kitchen thing or whatever.
Yeah.
So yep.
Okay. How much are you spending on Leads Kitchen?
So I think it's like right now. It's supposed to be $10K a month on revenue, and then we pay a $3,000 a month retainer.
Yeah.
But I think we've only gotten up to like 5,000 so far a month.
And has it worked for you?
Oh yeah, it's worked. They're getting massive amount of leads, and the cost per lead's pretty low. And yeah, we've already closed some deals off of it, so it's been pretty good.
Okay, so go ahead.
We were working with directed deals, which is doing a similar thing, but it just did not work out the same. They were just not as good.
So how much do you think you spend a month in marketing? Did I ask you that already? I don't think so.
No. Total, I think it's somewhere around $30,000 to $35,000 a month now. We just freaking really ramped it up.
So 35K, but then you're making 300K a month in revenue.
Yeah, gross.
That's really good. That's really, really, really good. You should be really proud of yourself. For a car salesman, that's not bad. So for people that don't know, Dakota used to be a car salesman. Used to sell Hyundais, right?
Hyundai, yep.
Hondas.
Hondas.
And now you're doing 300K a month in revenue, which is crazy.
That is pretty
I know.
crazy.
Even listening to you talk, it's kind of bugging me out because I'm like, damn, like you turned into this beast. I remember you were a little car salesman. Guy barely had a cat, and now you have a
Dude,
300K.
I do remember talking to you too. I remember I was at the dealership, and then you were like, what are you still doing there? And then I was like, bro, I'm making like 100K a year. You're like, that's nothing compared to what you could make. And like at the time, I would say my perspective was like, I never wanted to lose what I had. And that's where I think a lot of people are at. They're so scared to lose what they have in order to get what they want. And that's no matter what area you're at in your life. Whether I was making $12 an hour or whether I've been making $1 million a year, I'm still scared to miss out on what I have in order to like where I'm going.
Yeah, I think that was so deep. We got to put that in the intro too.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, so are you and Tony still partners or?
Yeah. So that was an interesting thing. I mean, I was to the point where we agreed on buying him out and this stuff. And then we went to Gary Harper's Power Day. And then after that, then he's like, I think I do want to stay in. And I'm the kind of person who's like, all right, dude, like, I don't really care. Like if somebody's in, out, that's like, bro, just if you're in, you're in. Like be all the way in.
Yeah.
If you're out, then you're out. That's fine. I just need to know where you're at. It's not gonna be this half in, half out. You're gonna say you're in, not do anything. So he's back in. It's been going good. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Anything else in marketing before we get to leadership and operations and visionary stuff?
I mean, the main thing that we've been working on now is just tracking those KPIs and really deciding our best ROI. Because like I said, we started doing the leads kitchen thing with Ryan, and it's like, okay, is that turning out better than direct mail? That's what we need to make sure of, is like, which one is going to deploy our capital the best? Because what we've done was we just kept building on it, and our sales is so strong that it's almost like we could have some bad marketing channels and we don't really know, because we're just like, we are doing as good as we possibly can in the sales aspect, that we're not measuring the marketing side as much. Yeah. So that's what I would say, is like, measure it and make sure we're getting the maximum ROI is something that we've never done, which I talked about on the last podcast that we did together, of like, you know, we just kept ramping up marketing and spending more and more and more. And now it's like maximizing the marketing spend.
Yeah. All right, guys. So today on the podcast, we have a special guest. He's going to come on. Come over here, Pineda.
Pineda.
This is the second I know. I got a guest host. He's free, but we have to talk into the mic. All right. So we're talking about marketing. That's why I was like, oh, Ryan's right there, right behind us. So tell us what's been happening with Lead Kitchen.
Me or Dakota?
No, Dakota.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was just telling him that basically what we did is we took down direct mail spend from Ryan Dawsey, and then we were working with Ballpoint Marketing, and that was kind of what we gave up in order to do we call it Pineda leads, but
okay.
Yeah, so
well, because you were doing it before it had a name.
Yeah.
So that's true.
Yeah, so we call them Pineda leads. So that's what it is in our CRM and stuff. But basically, we were also working with another company that was doing very similar stuff called Direct to Deals. And it was a similar structure, but it was just not as good, not as many leads. And like, it was horrible. So anyway, yeah, it was not fun. And so, yeah, now we just began a lot of leads, and I mean, cost per lead has went down. I remember whenever it first started, it was like $200, and I was like, wait, Ryan told me it's gonna be like 50, and they're like, I think he might have been being a little optimistic. I'm like, that's not what I want to hear. So anyway, now it's closer to like $80 per lead, and then we're starting to get crazy amount of leads. Like our acquisitions guys are like, dude, they're on fire, and like we're getting a lot of them. We're closing deals from it, so it's been awesome.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, so let's talk about Facebook ads.
Yeah, I mean, look, same thing you mentioned, right? I mean, we've known each other for 4 or 5 years now. Marketing is always changing, and direct mail has always been good for a period of time. TV was great for me for a long time. We still get deals with PPC, but the thing you want to do with marketing is be where everyone else isn't. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I just looked at it and I was like, well, I already know social media. I know Facebook. Like organically, I've done it for years, and I never did it for direct to seller because I always heard it never worked.
Yep.
Like I just never heard. But then I thought about it and I was like, well, yeah, everybody says you can't grow on social media either because they just suck. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, I'm just going to do it myself. So I used all my skills from all these years and I started running them for us, and then I saw them worked. And then, obviously you were part of the first beta test group, and like you mentioned, it took time during the beta test to, figure out, oh, okay, this is this market. These are the things that we need to do better over here. This is this. But now, like you said, things are a lot more dialed in, and like on a cost per lead basis for an inbound lead, I don't think there's anything else that's comparable.
Yeah. I got a question for you then, because I was thinking about this. I was like, I don't know. I always think about why you do what you do. And so then I'm like, man, I feel like it was a really good strategy, because I feel like it's kind of like Grant Cardone. So I'm just curious if you were like, okay, how can I get my face, my name out there more, have somebody else spend the money on the ad? And then now it's just like, it's like a win-win, because now we're getting leads for cheaper, but then you're actually getting your name.
More exposure.
Yeah, more exposure out there, but somebody else is paying for the ads. Was that like part of the...
It's interesting. A lot of smart people mention that who think deeper. So kudos to you for being, let's say 20 or 30% of people realize that aspect of it. I'll say this is truthfully, I'm indifferent on it for a couple of reasons. One is, I'll get more exposure with sellers and stuff, but sellers aren't the people following me buying my other stuff, right? So like Ryan Pineda doesn't have a ton of credibility with sellers. They don't even know who I am.
100%.
Now, they could go and Google and watch YouTube, and then maybe that helps convert some of those people who are like, oh, okay, this guy's legit. Like I can go see some other stuff he's got. So I do think that actually happens. So I think it performs well for that front. But on the bad side of it, my goal one day is to sell Lead Kitchen. Mm-hmm. That's my goal, truthfully. and I'll have to remove myself from it to make it sellable at some point. And so, as time goes on and as things grow, at some point I'll have to, figure out how to do it without me. And it won't be hard, truthfully, because I don't think my brand, Ryan Pineda, is making the ads good.
Right.
What makes the ads good is that I'm good at delivering the message. I can say to the seller the right things. I make good ads. We have good copy. Like, that's what it is. It's not my brand and reputation that's making them work.
Yeah. Is it possible, I've heard this and I don't know if it's actually possible, is it possible to take the list, because I was just talking about this, take the list that we're already pulling, we're cold calling, we're texting, can you pull that list and then actually target to those people as well?
So we can do what's called a lookalike audience. And so we could take your list, and yeah, we actually could, right? Okay. But we can also take it and create what's called a lookalike audience, where they're going to take your list and get all the people who are just like those people, and we can target them directly.
But you can't target the people on his list.
We can.
You can.
You can do both.
If their emails and stuff are registered, you can target them. Like, so if somebody opts in for Wealthy Investor, we can always retarget them because we have their email and their data. So we can do the same with sellers.
Could I give you? Yeah.
Yeah.
Like we can skip trace their email and stuff. Yeah. So if I gave you that list, could we? Oh, dang.
We can make it even crazier.
That'd be awesome. That'd be crazy. Because that's what I was telling him, is like, that's what I'm always working to do, is like, okay, we already pulled the list. That's where the bulk of the money is, because we're pulling all of the data and
it's
all these people.
Cost.
Yeah. And so then I want to hit it every single way possible. Direct mail, texting, cold calling, uploading it to that, like hit them every way possible, because the other stuff is cheap.
If you catch these people on Facebook.
Yep.
I mean, you already know they're motivated.
Yep.
You've pulled the list. They're in foreclosure. They're whatever. Yep. And that's the thing I always tell people too with this Facebook is, like, people are like, well, is it going to get oversaturated? I'm like, there's more people on Facebook than anything else. There's 2 billion people on Facebook.
Yeah.
Like, there's not 2 billion people watching TV. There's not 2 billion people, looking at their mail and all this. Like, it's way easier to meet these people on Facebook.
Yeah.
That's crazy to think about, because we all get mail, but I haven't looked at my mail in like 5 years.
But everyone looks at social media, especially the older people that we want to, do deals with. Like, they're on Facebook. What else are they on?
Yep. That's crazy.
Tell Ryan, like, how much revenue you're doing, your team, and all that stuff.
Like gross, or what do you mean?
Gross and net, everything.
Well, I'm going based a lot on last year's number, because we just switched over to Taylor, actually. And so
Taylor, yep.
Yeah, so mine's mostly from spreadsheets and stuff, which is kind of like it's net per property, but not net on like employees, overhead, stuff like that. And so, anyway, last year we've been making somewhere around like 1.2 net on everything. That's on our rentals, on our flips, on everything. So yeah, we're making usually somewhere around $100,000 a month.
Net.
Yeah, net after all employees and stuff.
What about like wholesale fees and stuff? Are you doing a month, like gross?
Let me see.
I think I was asking you this too while you're looking it up, but when we first started doing Lead Kitchen, I was asking you like what your average assignment was, and because for me, I just try to reverse engineer it. Like, this is a good math question or a math lesson for everyone, and you'll be able to confirm it. But the way you just figure out whether or not marketing is worthwhile is you simply take the cost per lead starting out, right? Then you say, how many leads does it take to get a contract? Okay. And so if I know Dakota's leads are $80, let's just say 100 for easy numbers. And then I know that it takes 20 leads for Dakota to get a deal. That may or may not be the number. I don't know. Then I know it's going to cost $2,000 to get one contract. And then I'm going to say, he doesn't close every single deal that goes in a contract. There's going to be fallout, whatever. But let's just say, for, once again, easy numbers, 50% don't work out. So now you're at $4,000 to get a deal. And so then we just got to look at, well, what's your average assignment? If your average assignment is 20 grand, you're making 5X every dollar you spend. That's an amazing. If I had a money printing machine where I put $1 in and I got 5 back, I'm going to make a lot of money.
Yeah, our average wholesale is 16.7 basically, so almost 17,000.
Okay. Do you know how many deals you got last month? Contracts. Let's say contracts, not like closed deals or.
Oh, contracts, like actual contracts. I think it was somewhere. I think it was somewhere around 20.
20 contracts last month, and then do you know how many leads you got last month?
I have it in a different spreadsheet, but I don't have it. I don't have it up.
Yeah.
And also, their business model is different. Also, their business model is different because they go wholesale, and then if they can't wholesale it before the contract ends, they buy it and wholesale it.
Yep.
And then if they can't wholesale it, then they flip it, and then they keep it as a rental.
Yeah. So that's basically what I did because it was just like making too many decisions and I needed to like, okay,
Simplify.
yeah, we need to like just, this is what we're going to do every single time because I'm tired of picking per property on what we're going to do to maximize. I'm like, let's just wholesale this, that, and like, yeah.
What's your average wholesale?
Our wholesale, that's the craziest part I was just looking at. It's horrible. Our average, it looks like, so Q1, it was $5,000. Q2, it was 13. So what I'm thinking is happening, what I'm thinking is happening is like our good deals are getting sold on wholesale and then the bad deals are like,
So maybe we got to change this process.
Exactly, yeah. But like, it's just simplifying and doing the same thing every single time because, it does. It affects. So now the worst deals are kind of like getting.
What about the flips?
The flips of average has gone down too. It's 20,000. Which is interesting. But we took some losses in Q1, so that was our average was 9, and then Q2 our average was 40, and then Q3 it's right around 23. So last year our average was right around 30. So again, I think it is just this like whenever you do that.
I think that it sounds like to me anyways that I think wholesaling first and foremost is good for scale, for risk, for cash conversion, and then you from what it sounds like should just fix and flip the rest.
Yeah, probably. It's just like the time. So what I look at is like I'm trying to maximize the time frame too. So I'm like, okay, if we got it as under contract as a wholesale, if we can just hurry up, flip it, now we just generated revenue without spending any more time. Same thing with wholesale. It's going to take a guy probably 3 weeks in order to get the guy over there, get the bid, do all that stuff. So we might as well see if somebody else will buy it in the meantime because we're not wasting any time that would slow us down. And so
what you're factoring in is like what we do in multifamily a lot, which is your IRR, so your internal rate of return. And so basically what you're describing is, well, I got to put money in to buy this deal. Okay. Now, if you're using other people's money, then it could be zero, right? But let's just say you have limited resources and, it's going to take $100,000 to buy this deal. And you know that wholesaling it is going to make you $10,000 and it's only going to take 2 months.
Yep.
So you invest $100,000 to make 10 in 2 months. Basically, that comes out to a 60% IRR. IRR. That's what the return is because you would just simply say, well, I made 10 grand and I could do this 6 more times throughout the year. Every 2 months I do this, it takes 6 times. So that's 60%. Okay. If you flipped it, you would have to look and say, well, how long does it take to flip? Let's say it takes 4 months to flip it. Okay. But you're going to make 30. So now the math goes, okay, it cost me 100. Okay. But I make 30, but I can only do it 3 times. So now I make 90K on my 100K. So it's a 90% IRR.
Yeah. So do you, I guess, when you're looking at your deals and stuff, do you just put that calculation in and decide what the highest IRR is and then it's already calculated so somebody else could do it instead of you making the decision or like?
Well, I don't make any decisions anymore, me personally.
Who is in?
Monty.
Okay.
Monty decides on all. Yeah. But I would say for us, we're like 95% wholesale or innovation.
Okay.
I have very few flips anymore.
That's funny because you're the one that convinced us to flip too.
I know.
I know you're like, you got to maximize the profits and stuff. I'm like, okay, we'll do it. And then now I'm like, oh.
Well, let's talk about that.
I built a whole business around it.
No, flipping's great, but
You're killing it. Yeah.
Yeah, no. But let me explain why it's different for me today. So when you first joined the program, it was 2020.
Yep.
Okay. We entered a cycle from 2020 to 2022 where there was no better time to flip.
Yeah.
I flipped 95% of my properties because we would buy a property, it looks like you're gonna make 30, you make 60.
Yep.
Okay. So I was like, why am I gonna wholesale? Like I know I'm gonna get all the upside, all the appreciation. I have the capital, I have the contractors.
Overbid.
Yeah, like now's the time to flip.
Yep.
And so I flipped everything from 2020 to 2022. But then, you guys didn't experience this in the Midwest, but I got killed when rates got doubled. And so I all of a sudden had all these properties I was going to lose money on. And so I had to offset those losses with wholesales just to stay afloat.
Yep.
Right. So I start predominantly wholesaling to cover losses and everything else. What we ended up seeing though was 2 things. One was we got a lot better at wholesaling. We got way better at finding buyers who were going to pay crazy amounts of money.
Yep.
Like literally, I'm not kidding you. We wholesale deals today for 30, 40 grand where the flip would make 30 grand.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
we're just getting that good at finding end buyers.
Yep.
So there's no reason to ever flip when you can do that.
100%.
But the second thing that happened was I learned a lesson from it. And I said, man, there's no point to hold 50, 60 properties at a time anymore, because that's what I did for years. The risk is too high at this point in my life. I have other sources of income. I don't have to maximize every deal, because I'm going to make money in other places too. So it also became a risk thing of like, well, if I can wholesale, there's literally no risk. My risk is marketing cost. Right. And so that played a factor. And then the third thing that played a factor was also scale. So when I soon realized was, I mean, you could scale wholesaling way faster than flipping. And so once I figured out how to do Facebook ads and everything else, I'm like, oh, this is easy. How do I want to scale this? And so then that took me to another conclusion of, well, I could spend more on my own team. I could, do this in other markets, but I could also just bring in all these other operators and use my marketing for them, which is obviously the path I chose. And now, I mean, Lead Kitchen is almost at 6 figures a month recurring, and it's almost all net.
Wow.
Because
they're paying for the marketing.
They pay the marketing. So, you're just paying a retainer. You get my leads. My marketing team's already my marketing team. Nothing changes. We just got to run the ads in your market.
Else, that's crazy. So I guess my most difficult thing that I experience now is like, you probably experienced something similar. What do you do with like your project manager and you have these people that I think was like your dad and like these people that are really close to you?
That's the hard part. I had my dad, Daniel, and then another guy, Blair, because I needed 3 guys and we had 50 at a time, right? So then we had to lay off Blair because we just didn't need him as we kept scaling down. And then, I mean, like right now we probably have 10 flips, like total. So, my dad's still on payroll. in all reality, I don't know that he needs to be there, but I'm going to have to give him the money either way. So it's irrelevant either way.
What a severance.
Well, he already has a house, a car.
He babysits too.
You babysit, like I'm going to pay him as something. So either way, he's still on. And then, Daniel, like I said, we still have 10, so we still need a guy. But you just don't need as much team. I mean, and by the way, that's happened in my other businesses too as they've evolved. Like, Wealthy Investor, we don't have to have so we're not holding WealthCon as often. I don't need all these event people anymore. What do I do with all my guys who sold tickets for the last bunch of years? And that's all they do, right? They're either going to need to learn a new skill to sell something else, or they're just not going to have a job because it's no longer necessary with the new model.
How hard was that for you? Because like obviously it's easier for me to make logical decisions and I can know what's best for the business, but I feel like sometimes I care a lot about these people and I care so much that I'm like working to figure it out. Because it's also where I'm like, okay, I feel like this is like my God-given purpose is to like lead and help people and develop them. And so I almost feel like this obligation.
The thing I realized, because trust me, I've been that same way. When I've had to shut down companies or anything else, I've always tried to find other spots for people, even if I didn't necessarily need it at the time. So I've done that along the way. But what I will say is just number one, as business owners, it is not our responsibility to feed anyone's family. Our first responsibility is to the business. Because here's the thing, right? Let's say that you got 20 employees. And you have 3 people you're keeping on because they're your friends, they got, their kids,
They give birth to you.
They give birth to you. Like I came from a seed. Okay. So like, what do you do? Right. Here's my thing, right? If the business isn't profitable, you run the risk now of making 20 people lose their families and jobs, and all the contractors and all the students and whatever else the entire business is funding, because you're trying to protect 3 people. And so now you're putting 17 other people at risk. And you just have to kind of look at the big picture. And it's like, look, I love these people, but if they are talented people, they shouldn't have a problem getting another job.
Well, that's what I thought about too, is like, I've thought about the same exact way of like, well, if the whole business goes under,
everybody's screwed.
But at the same time, the business wouldn't necessarily go under. So this is where it gets weird for me.
It will go under though, but if you constantly make that decision.
But I feel like it's making a decision not based on what's best for the company. I'm making a decision based on what I want for my life sometimes. And so that's when it gets really difficult. If I want to step away a little bit more, have some more time with my family and stuff, I think that we could be profitable as a business. I think we keep the same thing. We're going flips and stuff, but I don't think it's possible for me to step away and have the life that I want while still doing it this way. I think if I went more to wholesaling, I think I could have more of a life because I can do that easy. I can teach all these people very easily.
Yeah.
When there's flipping involved, it's a lot more stress, a lot more problems, a lot more stuff that happens.
Well, and the risk. What keeps you up at night is the risk.
Yeah.
You're like, I got all these properties, all these mortgages. Trust me, I get it. The good news is you have Lead Kitchen now, so you're good.
Yeah.
But we can scale it to the moon. But no, but in seriousness, like what we're talking about is all part of the same equation of, I mean, first off, as entrepreneurs, we start a business for our life in some kind of way, right? We're like, I want to work certain hours. I want to make a certain amount of money. You know, I want these kind of benefits that only entrepreneurship can give me.
Yeah. I decided I wanted to be around these certain people a lot too. Like that was important for me too. I want to
build my own culture.
Yeah.
I want to control my environment. I mean, look, we spend more time at work than we do with any other thing,
Yep.
right? So it all makes sense, right? But you know, your business evolves over time. And so your goals change. The market changes. What used to be the thing no longer is the thing. And so you got to constantly adapt and pivot. And sometimes, you know, there are jobs that are no longer required because of that. And either somebody has a skill set that can fill a new role, because it's not like jobs just go away.
Right.
It's just they get changed and repurposed. You know, like I need way more media buyers and copywriters and all these. I didn't need that before, right? So jobs get repurposed. But if people can't step up and fill those roles, it's not your fault.
Got it.
It just is what it is. And if, like I said, if they're talented and you love them, you should still be able to help them find another job. And that's what I've always tried to do. If there was somebody that I would really vouch for, but it's just they're no longer necessary.
Yeah. That's so tough, I guess, because I just like create this like culture, like this brotherhood. I feel like that's like,
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's very hard. But you have to do it for the good of everyone else too.
Right.
It's not just about more money in your bottom line. Your bottom line is everyone's bottom line. Because if you're not healthy, there's a problem.
it's just easier, I would say, whenever it's like, oh, you're not a culture fit. That's easy for me. It's like,
Oh,
dude,
yeah.
hey, you're not good. But when it's a good person,
Well, you know, Gary talks about that. The hardest person to get rid of is the great culture fit, low performer. Because those are the people who you're like, dude, like I really wish you would pick it up, but you're so cool. You're so nice. Like I can't bring myself to get rid of you.
yeah. Well, it's not even just nice. It's like good person. Like
That's what I'm
I
saying.
know they're not going to steal. Like,
Yeah, you fit all the core values. Everyone loves you, but your value to the company is not. You're not producing. That's the hardest person to get rid of.
Yep, that's actually a thing that I've thought a lot about is your value as a person is obviously there and like, you know, you're valuable to God, but then there's value in the marketplace and there's value to God as a person. And it's like a very hard thing to differentiate.
Well, and they might have more value to another company with their skill set.
Right.
But if I don't value your skill set anymore because our company is going in a different direction, what do you do?
Yeah.
And it's actually, honestly, from what I found, anyone I knew I was going to get rid of eventually either left themselves or I was just too coward to get rid of them sooner. And what, you know, because that person who's not having their skills be put to use knows they're not being productive. And as humans, we want to feel like we're useful and productive. And so if they're at a job every day where they can just see the things that they're doing are no longer working and you're not using them, it's like you would think if you had any common sense, like, wow, like how much longer do I have?
Yep. That's true.
All right.
That was great.
Good job.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on. What did you get out of that? Is there people in your company that you feel like you need to get rid of? Or what's
No. Right now, honestly, I feel like everybody in the company is like, it's good. I'm just saying, like, I've thought about those decisions on like, hey, what if I decided to scale down flipping? Like, would we need the COO? Would we need the project manager? We also have the other business starting up. So then like maybe I could pull them from one to the other and then take less risk. So for me, it's like, it's almost like a fear that I create in the future that's not existing yet because I haven't got there. But I have thought about that. Like I can wholesale and probably make a better return on investment because that's what I'm really good at. But flipping, like it did make sense.
Slows
and I
you
think
down.
it is. Yeah, I think it is slowing down. Properties are sitting on the market more.
Yeah.
So maybe we slow down, but then it affects these jobs that like the people that I love and I care about.
Yeah.
And so then it's hard. And so like it's not like it's a problem right now, but I can definitely see it as a potential in the future. And I've already been thinking about it.
Yeah. So right now, what's going on in my business is I'm starting to transition to wholesale more.
Yep.
I really don't want to buy more flips right now.
Yeah.
A couple of reasons. Number one, like me and Brianna went and looked at my flips. They're just sitting. Like literally I show up. We went to one house yesterday. There was no one there. The house is just
Contractors,
sitting.
yep.
We went to another
How long
house
has it been
that
sitting?
I don't know. I've had it for like a couple months now.
Yeah.
And then I went to another house that we're wholetailing. It's sitting there and the reason I'm wholetailing it is because I'm not confident that my crew can fix it up to the level it takes to get the ARV that I need.
Yep.
Right. So that one I'm taking a small loss on, but I don't care.
Yeah.
And then I went to another one that was a condo that was a light flip that it's been there for more than 30 days, which it shouldn't have been. And then I have another one sitting in North Vegas. So it's not the project manager's fault because he has a whole bunch of other projects going on. So it's nothing against him. And then, so that's one issue.
Whose fault is it though?
Well, yeah, hold on.
Okay.
The next issue is the money. So I have hundreds of thousands of dollars out right now, and then everything takes so long to get the money back. So I'm like, damn, like it's taking. Before, it used to take 3 to 4 months to flip a house. It takes 6 to 8 right now.
I switched mine. I switched mine in my calculator from 4, or we switched it from 6 to 8 because it used to be average 4, but we still put 6. Now it's averaging 6 and we still put 8.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's taking long. So I have the projects delaying. I have all the capital that's going out. The market is a little bit slow right now. Things aren't just popping off and selling for what I think they should sell for. So, and then I have my team. So the biggest problem right now is like my salespeople are like, dude, like we're waiting to get paid on these flips. Like we need to make money. And then I'm like, all right. But then the wholesale fees are lower. But then I'm like, hey, you have all these flips coming. And then I'm like, okay, do I just pay them in advance for the flips that are coming? Probably not. The good one, I might pay a little bit. But so there's that also where like if it was just me, it wouldn't matter.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I get paid $60K in the next 6 months.
Yeah.
But if my sales guy is like, hey, like,
Yeah.
if I don't make anything
gotta
for that
survive.
sale, exactly. So
Here's what I would do on that one. I would negotiate with people. So if they want to get paid up front, it's going to be a lower commission. So then you're not going to get paid out in the end. So I'll pay you, $2,000 up front, but then now you're only going to get 3% instead of your 10 or something like that. Like I would I'll front it, but like just know I'm taking all the risks, so I'm going to take a little bit out of that.
yeah, and I got to figure that out. And then also regulations. So like in California, just like it's just getting so strict on like, okay, if you got to give him your contractor's information, you got to give him a list of all the repairs, you got to give all the materials you put in.
You
You
got to
got to
stop
do.
flipping in Cali.
I know.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what's happening. And you know me, like since we've met, I've been a flipper.
Yeah.
I've been the flipper.
Yep.
I was like the youngest millionaire flipper in California that I know of.
Wow.
Like out of all of them.
Yeah.
I was doing the most volume, and now I'm like, I don't even know if it's worth it to flip. I think it is on the right deals.
Sure.
But to be extremely flip heavy,
Yeah.
I just think it's starting not to make sense.
For
Me personally right now, and this could change.
Sure.
If inflation starts happening and houses start selling for more, then you pivot. But I think I was struggling a little bit with my identity earlier this year because I was just like, oh, like I'm flipping. I don't want to be a wholesaler. I don't want to be a wholesaler. But now I'm like, I think I'm going to have to like turn into just like a straight wholesaler.
Yeah.
For at least 6 months.
I think wholesaling makes so much more sense. And like Ryan said, a lot of times you can make the same amount of money wholesaling as you would flipping.
Oh yeah.
That's the craziest part.
My wholesale deals this year have been big wholesale deals.
Yeah.
They've been like 30, 40, like 15. I haven't had any low wholesale deals this year.
That's what I'm
so
saying.
I'm like,
I think it makes so much more sense and it's so much easier. Like, and you can scale and do more. So to me, honestly, I always loved wholesale. We've always been 70, 75% wholesale.
Yeah.
But like now I'm like, I don't even know how many flips we want to do. Like I really would rather just stay doing 10 flips max. And so we can just maximize them and really go through them quickly.
yeah, the big ones.
Yeah.
Like the big flips that make sense that you have to flip it where for some reason you can't wholesale it. Or like I have one flip in Southgate in Los Angeles. I think easily 60K. Easily. So I'm like, that's the house that I want to flip.
Right.
I don't want to make 30K when I know I can make an easy 60K.
Yep.
But then I have other ones where I'm like, oh, I'm going to make 25. And then it's like, oh, I'm making 5.
Yep, exactly.
Like, get rid of those.
Yep.
Like, stop doing those.
That's the only bad thing about my model, I would say, is sometimes we end up flipping the worst ones because nobody else wanted to buy them. And so then we have to flip them just to kind of net out or make $5,000-$10,000 because of the progression.
Are you trying to price drop those?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
and they're still making that like
Yeah.
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 I think also too, in my opinion, your COO should, or Tony, if you don't want to do it, needs to be looking at like what's the most profitable thing to do on the deal.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It's such a tough thing.
I like what you're doing, but
Yeah.
there's
needs to be more decision.
there's money to be made in
100%.
that decision.
Yeah, and we give up
it's worth.
we give up a ton of equity on the wholesales, and so we're giving away the best deals that we could have made 60, 70,000, but we gave it away for a $35,000 profit because it's just the system and the process. And so I'm working to evaluate if I like what we're doing. Right now it's working and I like it because it makes decisions easier, but I might switch in the future to maximize. Like that's why I was kind of asking Ryan about like, do you have a calculation? And maybe I do need to work that because I know that I make decisions based on logic. I just got to figure out what is the logic that I'm actually thinking about to make this decision, because it's hard to take it out of your brain and put it on paper on why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
So that's why I got to figure out how to give it to the team.
So I know for Ryan's COO, he gets paid on net.
Yeah.
Right?
For the company.
For the company.
Yeah.
So his incentive is always like, how do we make more?
Yeah.
Because that directly impacts his net. If he was just on salary, he would be like, oh, let's just wholesale everything.
Right.
Right? Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You're getting paid no matter what. And then if he was wholesaling, it's like, all right, just wholesale whatever it is. But I think if Tony or the COO or whoever, if they're incentivized by the net, then that's what it is. You know what I'm saying?
I've thought about that, and I'm still working on that too. Of like maybe somebody will take over my role as CEO, and then they will get paid based on net and like take a similar position as me, and then they're going to be the person deciding. So
well, your COO could act as type of like before I became partners, my pay was based off net. All right, so let's transition to just leadership, right? Because Ryan just came on and talked about all that stuff, and you know, I'm going through all my stuff. Anyone that's running a business, they have to deal with leadership, right? So I guess like, what are some of the good things that you're going through right now, and some of the challenges?
Good things, man. Good things are, I would say, like the culture, the people. I got some good people around, and like the people we're very aligned in our core values on like, they're very growth oriented. These people want to grow. They want to push. They're humble. Like they're willing to learn. So I would say culture wise, that's like what we're doing really, really good at. The people are in. What we're struggling with is, I guess I want to call it accountability is really what I'm going to say, which is hard because like I feel like we hold people to a pretty high accountability, and like you said, I have pretty high expectations for people, and I hold them to that. But it's also like filling out the KPIs, like holding to that standard. I've kind of been more of like, oh, we're all about the results, so I really don't care how you get there. Now that we joined Gary's program and like we've been really keeping track of KPIs, it's like, did you fill it out? Did you do what you said you're going to do? Are you actually doing this stuff? And holding people to that standard, it kind of feels like we were very much like entrepreneurs of like, you just kind of go all over the place. Now we're getting more structured where you have to fill stuff out all the time, and like you're really tracking what you're doing. And that's been our hardest struggle, or biggest struggle, I would say right now, is holding everybody accountable to that. And I don't like it. I don't like that kind of stuff. I'm like, don't tell me to fill this stuff out and do this and are you doing, because like I'm doing it. I'm doing what I need to do, but then that's how they are too. But then it's just tracking that, because the only way that we're going to know if we're hitting that or going to where we want to go or doing the action steps to get us to the goal is by tracking it. I have to decide on if I believe that or not too, because I'm not the kind of person who's going to do stuff because I don't think there's a value in it. So like sometimes they tell me like, hey, do the one thing commitment. I'm like, wait, why the frick are we doing this when like we didn't do anything with it? So I'm not going to go spend all this time, effort doing busy work if it's not actually going to benefit the business. And so then sometimes it's got to be your buy-in. So if you don't think that it's going to make sense, don't do it. But if you think it's going to make sense, then you do it and you buy in, because I'm the kind of person that's not going to tell people to do something unless I think it's actually going to work. Now, I do believe it's going to work. When you tell a sales guy, you got to make this many calls and get this many contracts, and you got to do this. This is how you get to the result. Now you know what you need to do in order to get there. And so it's easier for you to just accomplish the thing instead of like, how am I going to get 20 sales a month? And then like, you've been in sales. Sometimes you don't even know what you have to do. You're like, I just got to make calls. Then you can never turn it off. You can never turn that off, because whatever you do is never enough. But if you know I need, like, based on the numbers, based on statistical, like, math, this is how many calls I need to make in order to get to what I want. And now you know you can feel good at the end of the day. I did everything that I needed to do to get to my goals.
Well, this is where I disagree with you, Dakota Bailey.
Okay.
So we've had a lot of salespeople, a lot of them, like Donald Trump says, and the hugest amount. And like what I've noticed is sometimes with some salespeople, if we're like, hey, do more volume of calls, they get stuck on how many calls they're making, and their production stays the same or goes down, or it might go up, but it doesn't go up relative to the amount of calls they're making, and they rather get burnt out or they don't like it.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that's what I've experienced.
So based on that, then what I would do is change the thing that you're measuring. And so if you're saying that that's not it, then you're measuring the wrong thing.
Yeah, so I don't do that anymore.
Yeah. So
we measure deals.
Yeah, so that, but not just deals. There's something else that is getting you to that, like that's getting you to that thing. It might not be calls. It might be talk time. It might be like what is the thing that you think's moving the needle?
Everything that I've always done with like, okay, improve the talk time, improve the dials, improve the this. Like, I'll tell them like, hey, your dials are low. You need to get it up. But if I'm like, hey, Dakota, do 200. Well, we're tracking it. So
but
we've
then
always
how do you
tracked
know it's
it.
low? What is it low based off of?
It's low based off their averages. So if I know averages, there is, but I'm not saying don't look at their KPIs. I'm saying if you think
200.
Yeah, going from 100 to 200 is going to double someone's production. It doesn't, in my opinion.
I disagree.
I disagree with you.
Good.
Okay.
I 1,000% disagree because that's like saying, okay, I got 10 leads. And increasing the leads isn't going to increase the sales. Yes, it should.
It's completely different because if you're telling someone now, hey, Dakota, make 200 dials. Now Dakota's like, okay, I got to make 200 dials. Instead of focused on the sales, he starts turning into a dialer.
That's what I'm saying. That's why you got to change the KPI of what you're focusing on. And so now you focus on something different. And that's maybe it's getting them to the next step. Maybe it's how many appointments they're setting. Maybe it's how many contracts they send out. Maybe it's how many times they ask somebody to close the deal. How many times did you ask for the sale? So I'm just saying that maybe you're tracking the wrong thing, but saying that KPIs themselves is not a good thing, I think is just that's crazy because there's something something that you have to do. There's something that you have to increase in order to get more. That's logic. And so something that you need to do more in order to get more. That just makes sense. But you're right. You can do the wrong things just because it's like, and I've been in that state. You're like, oh, I need to do 200 dials. So there's somebody that's talking and you're like, oh gosh, like they're taking too long. And they hang up. Yeah. And it's like, bro, that was a deal that you just passed on because you're trying to hit a different KPI that is irrelevant if you don't get the deal.
So it's the right KPI.
Yeah. So I understand what you're saying too. Because I do see people do that.
Yeah.
That's
and
stupid.
we've experienced it with talk time, with dials, with a lot of stuff. And then what happens is the salesperson, like I said, they get burnt out. Where they're like, this is too much now, or their production stays the same, or goes down, or it goes a little bit up, but not relative to the amount of work they're doing. So then they get burnt out.
Yep. And so then I would reevaluate the KPIs and stuff, and then also get feedback from them.
So what KPIs are you guys tracking now? Like, what are these forms that you're filling out?
Yeah. Let me pull it up, buddy. Good old spreadsheets. Oh,
Google Sheets, baby.
Yes, sir. All right, Asana. Get this thing right here. And I click on. I'd have to log in, dude.
All right.
It's so basically the main things that we're tracking now for our acquisitions guys is going to be contract sent, contract signed, and then we're also tracking on virtual contract sent and virtual and like in-person contract sent because I also want to know like are we closing more deals over the phone or are we closing more deals in person? We also track how many texts, how many calls they're doing per day. And so that's the main things that we track for acquisitions guys because I think that is important. And what I found, and dude, I used to track this in car sales. You know who the highest producer was? Me. You know who sold the most cars? Me. It was the craziest part was the relative thing was like I was doing 100 calls a day and I was selling maybe, 30% more than the next guy. He was only making, 20 calls. And so I made 80 calls that were worthless, but I sold so much more. So relative, his percentages were higher than mine. And I think that's what you're talking about. His percentages were higher based on like his closing ratio and stuff. So I always consider him a better salesperson But dude, I'm still going to outperform you every single month because I'm willing to put in more. I have better systems, and I can produce, and I will not burn out. I'll keep going. And
Because you have talent.
yeah, well, it's not even talent.
It is
He
talent.
had more talent.
No,
because
you have more talent.
No, I have
It
more talent
depends
in a
on-
system. Yeah, I have more
Yeah.
talent. I have more discipline. I have more grit.
Yeah,
But like when you
that's
look at
talent.
that is, I guess, a talent or a skill that I think you can develop. But what I would say is he's actually a better closer because he talks to less people and he does less deals, but the amount of people that he talks to versus the amount of deals that he's closing is actually a lot lower than mine.
Yeah.
But for me, I'm willing to work harder than everybody, which also means I'm going to develop faster because now I talk to so many more people that my skills get higher. And so I look at it in the sense of like not my best ROI per customer, but I'm just going to outperform
You're just gonna outwork
overall.
them. Yeah. Okay, so let's transition to personal development, and then we'll wrap up. All right,
Okay.
so you're in shape. You're freaking rich. You got a Rolex.
Rolex makes you rich.
Yeah, Rolex makes you rich. You know, you have a great relationship with Jesus. You're healthy. You have all this going on. How do you do it?
That puts me in an interesting light, I would say, that's not necessarily accurate too.
Do you have a Rolex?
Yes.
Do you have abs?
Yeah.
Do you make more than the average American?
Yeah.
By a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so then,
Well, what I mean by that, it was like everybody would be like, oh, you got the life, you know?
exactly.
And so like that's the interesting part is what I'm saying is like you feel good, you're happy, you're all that stuff. And what's funny to me is like I've been more unhappy now recently than I have
Really?
in my entire life.
No way.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. And so it's
Well, you just got out of a breakup too.
yeah,
So that is a big reason why.
sure.
So that's that you can't like
I'm just saying, like a lot of people will see that they look at me and they're like, "Oh man, there's this good-looking guy who's like got a lot of money." And
I don't know
like,
about good looking, but I get what you're saying.
yeah. Well, that's what everybody said. Like whenever I got out of my divorce, like, "Oh, you're young, you're
Yeah.
good-looking, and all this stuff." And I was like, "Dude, I was miserable, and I was making more money than I've ever made."
Yeah,
And so I'm in a similar spot where like my relationship with God is growing, and honestly, I feel like your relationship with Christ is growing the most for me personally in my lows. Like that's when I
yeah,
feel the
for
closest.
sure.
Is like, and a lot of people like kind of push away from that. Like, oh man, you only go to God whenever you need him and stuff. But sometimes God puts you in the situations where you have everything
Yeah.
that the world sees as great just to show you that it's nothing without him.
Yeah, that's
and
my testimony also.
that's where I feel like I'm at right now, honestly, is like in a sense of like going back to what's actually important and reevaluating that. And so that's where I'm at with everything. So while I think it is important to have every area of life, your health, your relationships, your business, your money, I think it's still very important for your spirituality to remember that's the most important. Like that's really
Yeah.
the foundation
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
everything. And so
Yeah.
that's where I feel like I'm being led to because sometimes it gets mixed
Interesting.
up too.
Yeah.
You know, like you think you're doing all this stuff for
Yeah.
God's glory and then like
Yeah.
it gets mixed up to where it's not. And so that's where I feel like I'm at.
funny. I'm gonna talk about that at my WealthCon speech.
Really?
Yeah. Have you seen my WealthCon speech before?
The last one?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the same thing. And it's
Mm-hmm.
so funny because I just see it over and over and over and over, especially on this podcast, because I always have successful men on here and they're like, dude, I got this, I got that, I got that. And then off camera and sometimes on camera, they're like, dude, I'm unhappy.
Yeah.
Like, a lot.
What I've found is this is what I'm realizing now in my personal life where God is like putting me through, honestly, is like I use those other things sometimes to mask an insecurity or some trauma or like to fill a void that's there. And then I'm like, and you get a lot of accolades. You get a lot of like, feels good, dude. Like when I feel emotionally upset and I go work out, I feel way better for a little while. When I go make a lot of money, it feels good for a while. But like what I've found is like, it doesn't fulfill the relationship that I have with God. It doesn't fulfill the relationships that I have with other people.
Yeah.
It makes you feel better in some sense.
Yeah.
And I think it's balanced because I also look at the other side of people who just like, they're lazy and like they freaking like overweight and stuff. Like I think that you have to have a balance still. So I'm not saying these things are bad, but when they're used as an avoidance mechanism, I don't care what it is, whether it's drugs, alcohol, working out, workaholism. If you're using it to avoid a relationship, actually feeling bad emotions or anything like that, that's when I think it's a problem. And that's where I'm at, is I've used it as a coping mechanism that I didn't realize before, because I always just saw it as good things. I'm doing good things.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting because I feel like you are so nice, right? You're so smart, so successful. So to hear you say that is so interesting to hear. Yeah, I wasn't expecting you to say that.
Yeah, I would say that.
I thought you were always a happy guy.
I'm happy. And that's the funniest part, is like you can be happy while still like in battling internally what's important, and
Yeah.
I'm overall a pretty happy person. I am more unhappy than I've ever been my entire life. And I think that it might be that it's a weird feeling of this transition. I feel like God is like transitioning me and where I'm going in my life right now. And so it's a not knowing. And then like also a lot of responsibility to a lot of different people, to where if I make a different decision, it's going to affect a lot of people that I care about.
Yeah.
And so like if I decided that God pulls me out of the company and says, all right, like you're not doing real estate anymore, that's a very real thing that could happen. Like
for sure.
I'm basically open to anything that God has for me this moment, but I know that's going to affect a lot of people that I really love and care about. And so that's something that I have to just be open to.
Oh yeah, you have to be open to it, because if you think about like in the Bible, when Jesus called his disciples, they had jobs and stuff.
Yeah.
They weren't just homeless guys, right?
Yep.
Some of them were tent makers or fishermen or XYZ, and they're like, all right, you saw that, you come with me now.
Yep.
So
yeah, that's where I'm at, is like I know the repercussions of what could happen, but also I have to be open to the fact that like I'm going to go where God calls me to right now.
Yeah.
And it's a scary thing. So I'm here for it. I'm learning. And
yeah, I think I used to feel like similar, where I felt responsible for everyone, and now I don't feel like that. I'm only responsible for a few people. So during my WealthCon speech, I'm going to talk about like disciples, and how like you can't call 365 disciples. You know what I'm saying? You could have your 12, but you know what I'm saying? And then even those 12, you're not financially responsible for them for the rest of their lives.
Right.
Like that'd be crazy.
Yeah.
Right? Imagine if any other big company, Honda, Toyota, the Wynn Casino, is like, we're responsible for all these people.
Right.
No matter what,
Yeah.
no matter if we got to shut the hotel down or XYZ over the seasons come and go. Yeah. But yeah. So I think for you, I think you're sad or whatever because of your recent breakup. Because I feel like that's a thing that has actually changed recently. So you're probably just adjusting to like this time. What would you say to that?
I think it's a part of it. I definitely think, I mean, to say it's not a part of it, I think would be not accurate, but I think it's a part of it. I do think it's like a transitioning time in my life too, where I've also, me being who I am and very driven, I've also never really wanted something that I didn't go get and not able to get. If I wanted abs, I can go get abs. If I wanted a Rolex, I can get a Rolex. If I always make sure that I do it smartly too, which is another thing that I could talk about. But anyway, it's like anything that I wanted, I could work towards it and make a lot of progress towards. Whereas now, like I always had this vision in my mind ever since I was like probably 18 that, when I'm 30, that's when I'm going to be more like almost like in a retirement kind of stage, like not retirement, but more of like a work-life balance where I can have kids, a wife, and I'm going to be there for them. I'm going to have time for them and I have more time freedom. Yeah. And now you can't just create that. I can't just create that where I'm like, oh, I'm going to go get a wife, because there's again, same way with being wealthy. There's a lot of other steps that I had to take. I'm not just going to go buy a Rolex if the Rolex is going to stop me from my financial future. I'm only going to buy the Rolex when it doesn't affect me anymore. Yeah. Same thing with a wife. I'm not just going to, I could go just get a wife and be married, but I'm not just going to go and get married because I want to fulfill this goal. It's got to be a lot of other preset standards that are there beforehand, but it's not just, it's not as easy, I would say, as making money or like being in shape. It's a lot of difficulties and realizations and like now for me, I have to look at myself and be like, okay, like kind of like what he was talking about is like, who do I need to become in order to be a good husband too? Because I think, I mean, if I'm being honest, I'll be real vulnerable here. Sometimes there is a little bit of doubt on the person that I could be in a relationship, because like I would say that I am pretty intense sometimes.
Yeah, you are.
Very blunt in the way that
Yeah.
I am. So then
Yeah.
it's like, can I be a good significant other?
Yeah.
You know? And
Yeah.
so
Well, I'll tell you this, right? So sometimes I'm a bad husband. Sometimes I'm a bad father for sure. But I'm trying my best and that's life.
yeah.
This is so weird to talk about, but were your parents perfect? No, my parents weren't perfect. Brianna's parents, I don't know them. Were they perfect? No. Everyone has their flaws. So even the fact that you're already going to be a great dad and father because you're aware of this. Not most people. There's a lot of people out there that they don't give a crap. They have kids and they don't see them. They're doing XYZ. So you don't have to worry about that. You're just putting a lot of pressure on yourself. But I think with you, while you are in this period where you're single, what you could do is just keep building your wealth. So when you do have kids, you're even in a better position where you're like, dude, now I really can just take 2 years off.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I think that I'm in a place like financially that I could. It's just not a place with responsibility wise that it would like affect a lot of other people. Like financially, I can do that. But for me, I'm not just going to double down. So this is something that I've done differently than what I've done in my past. Is before all I did was double down on what I'm good at. All right, hey, I'm just going to work out more. I'm going to go make more money. I'm going to get more ripped. That way people will like, want me more. Like I'm going to go make more money so I'm more desirable. But again, it's an avoidance mechanism that I'm not allowing myself to do it. Now I'm kind of like sitting in it a little bit more. And honestly, like I feel like God's with me a lot more through it.
Yeah.
So like now it's actually, I'm going to face the trauma. I'm going through a lot of different, some of it's counseling, some of it's like a book that I'm going through where it's going through some hard stuff that I went through as a child. And so just dealing with it as opposed to avoiding it is very difficult for me.
Yeah.
And also, I've talked to you earlier about this. There's a difference in confidence and self-worth. All those other things that I do will build my confidence. I'm a confident person, like because I know I'm going to do what I say I'm going to do. And because I do it and I'm very disciplined at it, that builds confidence, but it doesn't build self-worth where I feel like I'm just worthy in general without doing anything. That's what I believe self-worth is like, how can I be worthy of something without having to perform? And I don't feel like I am. I feel like the performance has to be there. I feel like I have to do certain things in order to receive love, which is like what I'm working through now.
Yeah. I know Ryan and some other people would be like, you just need to get closer to Jesus.
Yeah.
Like if you get closer to Jesus, then you don't have to do stuff in order to feel love or receive whatever you got to receive. Because I actually don't deal with that. I've never felt like I wasn't worthy of love or whatever. So that's interesting. But how have you been working on getting closer to Jesus?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's like, again, sitting in that instead of like me getting up and like going to work out and getting my mind busy and like making money. It's kind of like I can stop thinking about it. Now I just sit there and I'm praying, I'm meditating, I'm listening to the worship music. I'm just feeling the emotions that I would normally not feel and like that I don't want to feel, like feeling sad sucks.
Yeah.
And so I'm also in the belief of like, I can change how I feel. Let me just go work out, make myself feel really good. But sometimes it's okay to like sit in it and to be with God and like allow yourself to actually feel how you genuinely feel instead of like, I just change it. I don't like to feel sad. So I can switch it. If I just go put myself in a different scenario. So now it's allowing myself to question also why, and is it true, and remind myself in truth. Obviously I read my Bible every morning. I read one chapter of the Bible and that's usually when I'm praying and stuff. And that's obviously super helpful too, just to be with God in the mornings, especially in the mornings. I mean, it's just game changer. So also there's a book that I've been going through. I think it's called Man Talks. It's by Connor Beaton, which is, again, he talks a lot about avoidant and anxious attachment styles. And a lot of it does get caused from trauma when you were younger. And so I'm going through that and again, questioning, where did I receive love from? Why is it so hard for me? And like, why do I feel like I have to perform? And honestly, a lot of it did come from how my parents were. And if I got bad grades or something, I would be pretty punished. If I talked back, I would be punished. If I didn't perform a certain way, I would not receive love. And honestly, I questioned a lot of my parents' love for me in general, just based on how things played out and I'll just say, I guess I was in foster care, and like, with my mom, like, allowed that to happen. It felt like it was kind of like she chose different things. And so it's like, okay, felt like obviously it's not a logical thing, but at the time, I'm 6 years old, it felt like I wasn't good enough and like she didn't want me, and she had to do certain things to get us back that she didn't do. And so it just felt like a unworthiness that I'm having to work through, because obviously it's not true, but if you feel it when you're that young and you feel it your whole life, then I have to face it now and figure out what is true and remind myself of that.
Do you have a relationship with your mom now?
Yeah.
Okay. Like, is it a good relationship?
Good is a relative term. So it's a hard thing when, like, I still would say that I don't know if I believe she's 100% genuine, I would say. So it's hard for me to tell, like, okay, are you being real? Are you being authentic? Like, I don't know if I trust her all the way, which is difficult for me because I can read people really well too. And so it's hard for me if I don't believe everything that she says. She's the kind of person who does very much like I do. Oh, let's make everything good. Like, no matter what's happened. Oh, you're feeling bad. Okay, well, like, think about it this way and like reframe it and kind of like not allow yourself to just be real on like, hey, this is hard,
Yeah. But do you feel like you really love your mom?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely love her. Yeah. I care about her, and I know that she did the best that she could.
Yeah.
So
you should watch the podcast that I did with Thatch. So Thatch talked about his dad or something like that. I forgot. So it sucks. But his mom or dad, they didn't have like the best relationship, all this crap. And then the dad ended up catching cancer and dying. And then he dealt with it really bad. And then someone told him, like, you have to understand that what your dad did or whoever did when they were young is the best that they could do with the information they had at the time.
Yep.
So who your mom was whenever she did XYZ, that's who she was at the time.
Right.
And she's not that person anymore.
Yeah.
So if you have trust issues, like, some would say that you might have to just like get over it. I don't know if that's like a random thing to say. So with my mom, right? She was a single mom. She raised me and my sister by herself, right? So she used to be a cocktail waitress. So let's just say when I was younger, right? I would struggle with reading, right? I'm terrible at reading, like terrible, right?
your mind's too fast.
Yeah. I'm like, dude, I gotta go. I can't read this right now. So I remember being young, and she would get super mad, bro. Like, if I'm sitting there reading and I'm messing up, she gets so mad. She'd be like screaming in my face and like getting like this, like right in my face. And it would upset me. And I'm like, dude, like, why is she acting like this? Like, oh my gosh. So I resented her for that. And she kind of did that, like, I would say my childhood. And then as a young adult, I started getting older where I'm like, dude, I'm not going to take this. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And sometimes she would hit me and all this crap, just yell at me like extremely, right? Until I got old enough where I was like, dude, I don't have to take this anymore. Like, literally, I'm like telling her that, like, I'm not taking this anymore, right?
Yeah.
And then once I got old enough, I moved away from her. And then I held on to that until I got saved. Like, literally until I got saved last year, from 5 to 32 years old, I held on to that.
Yeah.
Right? But until Jesus took it away from me, like, or I gave it to Jesus, I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah.
Now I don't feel that at all. Like, sometimes I cringe when she says that because my mom is kind of cringe, but I feel like a lot of parents are like cringe, where you're like, oh, that's weird.
What did you have a conversation, or how did, no?
No. It literally went away. Just like I was watching, you could say, I had like a addiction.
Yeah.
And then after I got saved, it went away.
Wow.
Yeah. Like, not even one more time.
Wow.
Like, yeah. And I didn't even ask for that to happen, which is crazy. Which is crazy, right? So, but with my mom, right? And this analogy could be weird, right? So let's just say you slap me, right? And right now I'm pissed at you. I'm like, Dakota just slapped me, that son of a gun, right? It's reasonable for me to be mad at you, right? Mm-hmm. Let's say 5 years from now, if I'm like at my house, like freaking Dakota slapped me, that son of a gun, 5 years later, that might be reasonable, maybe. But about 20 years from now, if I'm like, that damn Dakota slapped me, at some point it's like, where's the end of like
100%.
Your mom did this, she did it.
100%.
Have you thought about that?
Of course. So here's what I would say.
Okay.
That is going to be, yeah, anyway.
And we could just you could completely disagree with me. I'm open to whatever.
Yeah, no, I'm going to disagree a little bit.
Yeah.
I do think it's unreasonable. So I'll agree with you on that. I think it's unreasonable. But what I would say is like, it's not a logical thing. It's an emotional thing. And so what I've found is I know it doesn't make sense. I know that I don't want to play a victim. I know that she did the best she could in that situation. It doesn't change the way that I feel whenever it happens again, or like that feeling with like whenever it like gets triggered. And so that's what I'm working through now, is like the way that I coped with it back then was by doing exactly what she did. I would get very logical. I would say, hey, you're not going to do that to me. And I would put up these defense mechanisms, which is now protected me and turned me into the person that I am, which is like very logical, very analytical. I can read people like no other. Like it turned me into the person I am. And everybody's like, oh man, my trauma is so great because it turned me into the person I am. You're right. And it did. And I have a lot of superpowers. And like, I am the person that I am today because of what happened to me. And I think it gained me a lot of strengths. What I found is a lot of people's strengths also becomes a lot of their weaknesses. And so what I'm working to do is my strengths are discipline, logic, like just doing the same thing over and over and like knowing where I'm going. And then my weaknesses are, empathy, like connection, vulnerability. And so
I would say you're vulnerable.
In some sense, in a logical sense, but like an emotional sense where I'm like cry in front of you, that'd be very difficult for me.
Yeah.
Seriously, like I just don't like to do it. And so I will stop myself because I can control my emotions a lot. And so I stop myself from feeling a lot more. So I'm vulnerable in the sense that I can explain to you what I'm experiencing, but to show you what I'm experiencing is a very difficult thing for me. So that's one of my weaknesses. And so what I'm doing now is feeling more and actually allowing myself to go into that a lot more in front of people, which is very scary, very difficult because it's an emotional thing. And then also I'm writing a book right now, which has been helpful too, but I have to feel the emotions that I've never allowed myself to feel even back then, which has been, just difficult.
Yeah.
So, because again, I want to protect myself. I want to not feel negatively. And there's some stuff that happened that, I'm like, oh, I'm fine and I'm strong enough. And like, that's the kind of talk that I had that turned me into this person that is like, it does not matter what I go through. I turn kind of into like almost an animal, but then also I hold other people to that same standard. If you start to, oh, I feel sad, I feel this, dude, doesn't matter. Get it done. Yeah. And that's the way I talk to myself. Well, that doesn't work very well in relationships. That doesn't work very well for connection when no matter what somebody says, no matter how they feel, I tell them to like suck it up and do it anyway. Like it's kind of how I talk to myself. And so the way that you talk to yourself is the way you're going to talk to other people. And so that's what I found anyways. Like it's an emotional thing. It's a weakness that I'm working through and it's not fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you tried to just give it to Jesus?
I would say probably not.
Really?
Yeah, I don't think I have.
Why?
That's a great question now that I'm thinking about it.
Dude, I'm so freaking smart. Guys, if you don't subscribe to this channel, you're an idiot. Okay, but yeah, that's so weird.
Yeah, that is weird. Like now that I really think about it, maybe that's why I'm still feeling this way.
I know, because you're just trying to handle it on your
Yeah.
own. That's why I said, like, so if I just use the porn thing, and we might have to beep out the word porn because it might censor this video. Like, so I'm going to get super vulnerable. This is going to be so weird. But let's say, because I don't want to say ages because then it might be weird, right? But let's say from a young age, right? Young age, like pre-middle school.
You're like, I'm not going to say an age, but let me get down to exactly what age I would be.
Yeah, let's say pre-middle school, right?
Okay.
To have this weird thing where you watch stuff on TV or whatever, right?
Yep.
And then that grows into, you know, watching porn and all that stuff as a young man, right? A young boy, really. To 32.
Yeah.
And I tried to stop. And I'm not saying like I was obsessive, but
Yeah.
to do something for that long and then to go to church one day and it go away like that. And I didn't even ask for it to go away. I didn't say, God, please. I was like, all right, I'm gonna commit. I'm gonna do this. And then I was like, okay. And then a few days went by. I was like, oh, that's weird. I didn't do it. Okay, like a couple weeks. I was like, that's really weird. And then months. And then I'm like, wow, that's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's never happened for, let's say, 20 plus years, literally, which is crazy. Think about 32 to, you know. So, and then with my mom, like my mom, as soon as I turned 19 years old, I moved out of my house. I remember the day I was at the house. I think Noah, my son, threw the remote in a dog bowl and then she just started blowing up or something like that. Like I stepped in the dog bowl, Noah threw the remote in the dog bowl, something like that. She started yelling and I was like, I'm out. All right. I drive around. I go into an apartment complex. I got an apartment and moved out at 19, stayed away, turned 25, met Jessica, moved to California, didn't talk or see my mom the whole time I was in California.
Wow.
Yeah. Came back, got saved. And then pastor was talking about coping mechanisms or strongholds. And he was like, some of your strongholds are, you know, distancing yourself or, you know, getting angry or whatever the case may be. And I was like, dang, like that my stronghold is like, oh, you hurt me? I'm staying away from you.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm going to make it awkward when we're around each other. So that way, you know that I'm upset at you. You know what I'm saying? And then, you know, I went to my mom's house after church. She didn't meet Noah or she didn't meet Levi and Camila until they were like 5 and 4 years old.
Wow.
Yeah. It sucks, huh?
How's your relationship now?
Well, yeah, let me finish the story. Okay. So went over there, right? And she didn't meet my wife.
What?
She never met my wife. She didn't meet my wife until we were married for like 7 years.
Oh my
6 or 7 years. So that day after church is when she met my wife.
Wow.
Yeah. So I went over there with Levi, Camila, and my wife. And, you know, we're all sitting there and I'm like, and she has cancer now.
Wow.
So she's like, her stuff is removed. She's like not looking the best. And then I'm just like, why? Why did I hold on to that for that long? Literally makes no sense. So, yeah, I don't think I could have done those things without God's help for sure. I think what would have happened is I would have kept doing what I was doing with the porn thing. I would have kept doing what I was doing with the distance thing because I did that to my mom and then I also did it to my dad. And I also did it to anyone. If anyone screwed me over on a deal, they're done. Literally. It takes I had one wholesaler out here say he was going to partner with me on a deal and didn't. I was like, okay, unfollow. Bro, you show up to the meetups. I'm not even pretending to be cool with you.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, no, like we're not cool. Like that was my stronghold or whatever. But after I got a relationship with God, like that kind of stuff got fixed.
Yeah.
But what was your question?
I would say, how's your relationship now with your mom?
A lot better. But like I said, it's not perfect because my mom is like kind of cringe. Like my mom has like just everyone's parents has these weird things where they're like, my mom's always like, oh, you know, the house is dirty. You know, I would have cleaned. I'm like, the house is always the same. Like your houses look the same since I was born. Like literally like, or like, oh, she's like a hoarder on some little stuff or just like random little crap. Right. But I for sure forgive her. I for sure.
Did you tell her?
No.
Do you think it would help?
No, I don't think so, because she apologized a lot during the years where I was gone, and I was like, it's okay. I'm not mad. I think my actions and my willingness to have a relationship with her is enough. Because she tells me like, hey, I'm so happy you let Noah come over, or Levi come over, or I got to go to your house. Like, she never went to my house in California. Since I've left, she's never been into a house that I own. And even though I was gone all that time, I was still financially supporting her, but I didn't talk to her. Like, I bought a house for her to live in. I'll pay her, I'll do whatever, but I didn't talk to her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you should tell her.
I'll tell her.
I
Yeah.
think you should tell her, like, hey, I just want to let you know I forgive you.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, I think that mean a lot. And I think that obviously for men, like, words mean a lot. And, and I think words of affirmation, like just letting somebody know that, mean a lot too. So honestly, if you don't feel comfortable with it, I would write her a letter. Yeah. And that's just
I'll
as
tell
effective.
her. I don't care. Yeah.
But you have to tell her in like a real perspective of like,
yeah, I will.
And then like, I forgive you for all of it.
I think emotionally, like, I am way more emotionally sound where before I wasn't.
Yeah.
So I could tell her that and cry and give her a hug, and it wouldn't, like, I'd be like, all right, like, great.
It's not about you.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
about like, I think for her at this point.
Yeah.
Because like, that's a long time too. And like, I can't even imagine,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
what she's got to be going through.
So what, if you were coaching yourself, what would you tell yourself you need to do with your mom? Because I feel like your mom is what's messing up in your relationships, because some of the stuff you said about your mom is stuff you've said about your previous relationships, almost verbatim. It was funny too. That's why I kind of smiled when you were saying it. I was like, you literally said that exact same thing about like not trusting her and all that stuff.
Well, it's interesting though too, because that's exactly what I have to differentiate is like, okay, what is my trauma and what is the other person? And so like in my past relationship and my just most recent one, yes, that is the same problem that I had with my mom. And that's what I have to differentiate. Okay, is that because I got so close to her, because I got so intimate that I got scared and I was trying to pull away? Or is it because she's not trustworthy? And how do you differentiate that if no matter what, whether the person is trustworthy or whether they're not, I'm going to pull away? And so that's something that I had to work through. And I feel like I made the right decision based on how she's reacting now. But then the relationship before that, I felt a safety and trust that she was not going to hurt me. But I didn't get vulnerable either, which is interesting. So I did have a trust for her of like, hey, you're not going to hurt me. Like, you're not going to do anything vindictive. Like, I do trust you to be authentic and ish. So yeah, maybe it is. I don't know how I would fix it with my mom per se though. Cause like if it's a feeling of whether they're being real and authentic with you or not, it does feel as though, how could I, that's a good question. I don't know what I would do to.
Can you just trust her and just say she is being genuine on what she's trying to do?
So yes, I could if I believed it, but if like based on, I can't just lie to myself. But oh yeah, I believe you and I trust you and I'm going to trust you. But when I can like read somebody and I can tell how they feel, like, I can't tell how everybody feels. I want to be very clear about that. It's not like I can just tell how you feel, but you can also tell when somebody's saying something that's not real. Like you just can. Like, so when somebody's just straight up lying, they're like, I'm so happy right now. You're like, okay, why do you look miserable? You know, and like they act like they're all good, even though you know they're putting on a front. You can tell that. And so that's what I mean is like, it's a difficult thing. What I would say that I am kind of doing differently now, that I guess the advice I would be is like, I just turned 30. And so like, to me, that kind of like feels old. So I'm like, okay, I'm 30 years old now, dude. Like, I keep saying, oh, in the future, I'll spend more time with my mom. In the future, I'm going to do this stuff. No, I just drove down to Kentucky 2 weeks ago because my mom and sisters live down in Kentucky. Like, I don't care. I'm driving down there. So I drove 3.5 hours down there one day, and I came back the very next day, drove 4 hours back because the traffic was horrible. So for me, before I'd be like, no, that's not worth, 7 hours of driving isn't worth 24 hours of time. When I'm like, no, that's worth it to be with my mom and my sisters. And then I also stayed with her. I stayed with my mom, even though like her house is like, she's got dogs and the bed's super uncomfortable. So I was like, I'm still going to stay with her anyway, because usually what I would do is go stay in a hotel because I want it to be clean. I want it to be the certain way. Yeah. And now I have to be more okay with and not being exactly how I want in order to be in the
Exactly.
relationship that I want.
Exactly. So that's what I'm saying. You have to be okay with what it is, even though it's not exactly
Yeah,
what it is.
exactly.
So accepting her for you probably don't believe her, but
Yeah.
it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. Still like, okay, this is how
You're saying you're okay, even though you look like shit. Okay.
yeah,
Like,
it's like,
that's
yeah,
great.
It's being okay with that. And then, yeah, I think that, it has to be with how I show up, not based on what I believe they're doing. And that's what I'm figuring out is like, okay, how could I show up to where maybe she would feel more comfortable with being more vulnerable with me, with actually sharing some stuff? Because I also think that when people get around me, they notice the high expectation that I have. And so they want to perform and they want to be better, be more of somebody. Like I kind of feel that around my family sometimes too, is like they almost view me as this person that they want to be on their best behavior around me. And it feels weird instead of like being the person that they can connect and be real and authentic with, because they almost, maybe it's the way I speak or I don't know.
Yeah.
But
So it's funny because Brianna's boyfriend, and myself and some other guys are in a discipleship group, right?
Yep.
And then they talked about, are you the thermostat or the thermometer, right? So you are definitely the thermostat, like to them. That's what it sounds like. Because you're just like, you're successful, you're in shape, you got the Rolex, you're clean, you don't want to be dirty, you're like this, that, you're like that. So they're like, oh, like, you know, not to the extreme, but you get what I'm saying? They're like, all right, I got to be this type of person because Dakota's here, right? And you have to maybe learn how to be the opposite of being like the thermometer, where it's like, you know, I'm going to sleep in this dirty house or, you know, on this uncomfortable bed or whatever you said.
Yeah.
And just being okay with that, where then they feel more comfortable with you. And then maybe you will get ease with that relationship.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to continue this on audio. For everyone on YouTube, subscribe, share this. If you enjoyed this podcast, if you're still here after all this time, let us know in the comments. All right? We appreciate you guys. We love you. Peace.